The bamboo orchestra, of course, is a hard act to follow, but what I'm hoping to do today is take us all along on a collective journey. Can we have the slides, please? Great. Our story today actually starts with a footballer, Rio Ferdinand. On a trip to Singapore a couple of years ago, he tweeted, you see it here, "Nasi goreng lunch, keeping it local in Singapore." Well, I can feel the tension rising among the Indonesians in the audience, and needless to say, this caused a Twitter storm over Indonesia as outraged citizens rushed to defend their national dish. Until food historian Fadli Rahman came in and said, "Calm down, guys. After all, nasi goreng isn't Southeast Asian at all. It's actually a derivative of pilaf, and it was brought to us from the Middle East by Arab traders." The famous local rice dish here in southern Bali and Denpasar is nasi jingo. You've seen it here. I've been told it's traditional, but that's a tradition that was started in the 1980s when a husband and wife team invented the dish. They named it, in fact, after the movie character Django. Why not? The dish included noodles, they liked westerns, and Django's a spaghetti western. Made in Italy, like its namesake food, which, by the way, didn't come with Marco Polo from China, but actually, again, from those very restless and inventive and influential Arab traders. And another surprising fact about spaghetti is that it wasn't actually eaten that much beyond rich and royal families and the people of Naples until the economic boom of the 1950s, when it spread and became the national dish of Italy. But again, in the last 5 years, consumption's dropped by 10% due to health concerns. Courgetti are, in Italy, like everywhere else, trumping spaghetti. So I could happily go on all morning with this whirlwind world tour of foods. But the point I'm trying to make here is that food cultures are always on the move. Sure, we have eaten rice and wheat for millennia, but there's always a new recipe. Traditions are often a lot less traditional than we like to think. Only a fifth of food crosses national borders, but the exchange of food culture is phenomenal. My feeling, which I hope you're all going to share with me today, is that human ingenuity and human appetite for change means that even more change in how we eat and what we do is possible. It's not just possible, it's probable. And it's not at all scary. Because change is what we have to do, change in how we eat. Today's talk isn't about the technical details, that will come in through the conference. But broadly speaking, if we want healthy people on a healthy planet, then the Abu Bakr family in Darfur and the Reeves family in North Carolina both need to converge more towards a diet that looks something along the lines of this weekly shop in Bogota, Colombia, or it could be any other country in the world, the local cultural equivalent. And how long do we have to make this change? Well, it depends on how fast we change our energy systems and our transport and so on. But broadly speaking, we have 1 generation to make this change. 1 generation. And the kids are calling for it. And can we do it? Well, of course we can. And do we know how we can do it? Well, we've pretty much stamped out cigarette smoking in a generation. And that experience has taught us a lot about how to bring about this kind of change. For decades, if you were a kid in the 70s like I was, you were just told that smoking was bad, it was naughty, it was wicked. But at the same time, surrounding kids with images of their celebrities and idols puffing away and surrounded by cigarettes in shops, as you can see with this kid here. Now we know that it's much more successful to change the cues and prompts immediately around us for both kids and adults. Here's Homer opting for the fruit when he could have the donut because, well, is it worth the 3 extra steps walked to pick up the donut? Take away the micro frictions that stop us from making the right choice. This is an expression of the behavioral economists and the marketeers. And that what happens then is that the good choice is the easy one, the familiar one, the appealing choice. The other lesson from stopping smoking is a bit like the bamboo orchestra. The actions need to be sustained, they need to be system-wide, and every single one of us has a part. There are roles for everybody. The real leaders, of course, are ordinary people, people who have ideas, people who try things out, and people who communicate powerfully. If that noise becomes loud enough, then the politicians and the governments follow those people and get the rest of us to do so too. Some businesses might be threatened by the change. We know that big change means that certain parts of industry end, but it also creates space for massive innovation, for new products, for new ways of working, new business models. So let's just have a look at this from the perspective of food. They're food heroes the world over. I can't tell the stories of these three today, but they're people all over the world, growing food better, linking farmers to consumers, helping kids develop good eating habits. And please, if we do chat in the next few days, tell me the stories about your own food heroes. And peer influence is also mightily powerful. We're in a world of social media today, which at its worst is where healthy lifestyle influences make us feel inadequate about ourselves. But at its best, it's an engine for real inspiration and for collective action. Which brings us to the centerpiece of change, and I believe this is government. Our collective representatives are governments. And I'd like to say now that I think that governments have been content for far too long just to publish food pyramids like this one that you see in front of you. Very informative, but drowned out by all the other messages and cues that we get. Remember, after all, that the annual budget of the WHO is less than the advertising budget of a single big brand food or beverage. So we'd really like governments to step up. A basic step is to apply food pyramids throughout government practice, in public procurement, in hospitals, but most importantly, here in schools, where we learn our lifelong attitudes to food and eating patterns. And the question I'd like to ask is, can governments be really brave enough to take a joined-up, system-wide approach to addressing the big food system barriers to health and environment? The reason I'm using Indonesian examples today, friends, is not to pick on Indonesia. We have the same problems throughout the world, but I'm choosing Indonesia because we're here and it gives us a good place to think about. So let's take this example with sugar in Indonesia. The average Indonesian consumes double the national recommendation for sugar. Diabetes is massive and rising, and it's a huge public health cost. At the same time, Indonesia pledged to be self-sufficient in sugar production by 2019 and spends billions on producer subsidies. But instead, the actual barrier that Indonesia exceeded this year is it became the world's largest importer of sugar, the number one. Countries like Thailand and the Philippines have enforced sugar taxes, which has made the fizzy drinks companies, the multinational fizzy drinks companies, reduce the amount of sugar in the recipes they use there. They now export all of that excess sugar to Indonesia, where the exact same brands have maintained the higher sugar content, and they're even allowed to be advertised as health drinks. I mean, surely in this kind of situation, it's a no-brainer to join up health and agriculture policies, to eat less sugar, to grow less sugar, and achieve self-sufficiency that way. The politics are going to be really tough. They're obviously winners and losers. But we know that companies, given the right signals at the right time, innovate quickly and please their customers. Here's a great example. Everyone's giving this new whole grain instant noodle a 5-star rating. Ramen Raters put it in the top spot in its best ever noodles list. Which brings me back to full circle to the title of this presentation, Rewind or Fast Forward. Some commentators think that we need to reject all of the errors of modernity and rewind back to the food and farming of our foremothers and forefathers. Of course, there is merit in learning from the past. I'm sure that this Balinese food delivery man from the 1870s with his mobile warung could teach us all a thing or two about good food, about good headwear and being streetwise. But today our food comes more likely by ojek, by motorbike, and tomorrow perhaps by robot. So I'm much more in the fast-forward camp. The future's already with us, patchily of course, so let's embrace it. We really can shift to healthier patterns of eating for people and for planet. Lots of countries have already flattened out the rise in adolescent and child obesity. There's startups which are making future foods out of insects and algae are proliferating all over the world. And teenagers are fighting back on climate change. Change really frightens us, but we do it all the time. Thank you, and have an inspiring conference.